let's go road tripping. Gonna drive up to the country of Wales. Gonna cook up some nice food in the back of the van. Gonna meet up with some local people. I'll see you there. It's about 4 hours drive, so it's quite a way. I got this really cool thing for my van. It's this little magnet, and there's a magnet on the back of my phone, and it just sticks on. Ta-da! I did have this grippy thing which went on there, and it gripped the phone, but then the spring in it wore out, and then it didn't end up working. But this is really, really cool. Got my Pringles. Everything I need for a few days camping is in the back. Let's go! Oh, it's a beautiful day. It's really rainy. I can't see anything. Perfect weather for camping, eh? I'm not gonna lie, that is quite a big bridge. And I think I'm in Wales now. About 5 hours later, and I've nearly arrived at Griff's bee farm. I actually visited Griff back in April, and I learned a bit about his beekeeping business up here in Wales. I made a full video about that visit, so you can check that out on my channel. It'd be interesting to know how his beekeeping year has been, and also I really want to pick up some candles. I bought a couple of candles from Griff back in April, and I've used them up, because it's always nice having a beeswax candle. They smell so nice. It's quite quiet, not many people, lots of hills, lots of farmland. I quite like it. There's a peacock. Oh my goodness, there's one there and there's another one there. What is going on? We have arrived at the bee farm. And on your right is Griff's bee truck. No one will ever miss him while he's on the road. Griff took me into the warehouse where his family and staff were busy making candles and packing orders. I got to watch and learn how the candles were made by melting down large blocks of beeswax and pouring it into moulds with a cotton wick pulled through the middle. If I get enough wax from my bees next year, I'm definitely going to give candle making it a go, as it looked like a very therapeutic, fun activity.
We've had the best year we've ever had honey production wise. Just 12 years of beekeeping, never seen summer like this before.
Why do you think that this year turned out to be a good year?
Just because we had a summer, a proper summer for once. We didn't have constant rain, the flowers came out, the weather was good when the flowers was out. And you know, it was warm and dry for weeks and weeks and weeks and weeks at a time. And basically nothing down to me. It all came down to the weather being spot on.
No, I'm sure you did something. You did some special beekeeping magic.
Putting boxes on the hives, and you know, I think the best one, I think I had like 8 supers on, you know. 8?
Yeah. How tall was that? Was it like...
I had to get up on a step to get to the top, you know.
When you're in this honey house for, I don't know, 8 hours a day or whatever, what do you do to pass time? Because it must get quite repetitive.
It's fairly repetitive, but I tell you what, I actually love coming in here. I've got 2 heaters on the wall with a thermostat, so it's nice and warm. It's like 20 degrees, you know, perfect for extracting honey. Outside is raining, I'm in here in a shirt, I'll put my white coat on. But the trick is this Bluetooth speaker. I listen to podcasts all day. Do
you want me to tell you about my honey extracting this year?
Yeah.
I had 1.5 boxes and I had a 3-frame extractor, and it took me about 4 hours and then I was all done. So I don't know, it was very enjoyable, but I don't know if it would be enjoyable after doing it for months at a time.
Yeah.
Cool, thank you, Griff. See ya, have a good one. Well, that was fun. Got my bee supplies, honey, candles, more candles. Now I'm going to try and find somewhere to camp. It's so handy, this Park for Night app. You just click search area and it comes up with all the local places that people have camped, and you just press drive to the spot and then bam, away you go. We're stuck behind a hedge trimmer. We got out of the traffic. I have to say, I'm rather fond of these Welsh country lanes. They're a little bit scary because you can't see what's going around the corner, and they're often kind of annoying because you get stuck behind the tractors and stuff, but I like it. It makes me feel like I'm in the proper countryside when you're driving down these bumpy, thin country roads. Welcome to my house for the next night. Tonight we're gonna cook up something nice because the other day I did some online food shopping and got a little carried away. 36 months. This cheese is old and stinky. The food I'm gonna cook up on my little road trip next week is gonna be it's a celebration. A celebration of life. Oh my goodness, look at it. Is this order a gift? Yes. Enjoy your tasty food. Food shopping done, and now I have no money. Cooking with Alex in the back of a van. Oh, it's a little robin. Right, I think I have to be really patient if I want to feed Robin by hand. Ow, just burnt my finger. So we've got the Japanese wagyu A5 inside here. We're making sushi, by the way. One cup of water, 1 cup of rice. 10 minutes or something boiling. Sushi rice liquid, a tablespoon of white rice vinegar, a tablespoon of sugar, and a teaspoon of salt. This knife here I made myself at the beginning of the year, and this leather sheath is made by someone who lives in the village where I am camping tonight. And I'm going to meet him tomorrow to learn about knife making. Look at this thing. The marbling is just insane. That is going to be saved for a rainy day. This is going to go on here, and then this pan is going to go on here. There's so much fat in this steak that you don't need any oil to cook it. That smell just brings me back to the place where I was when I cooked wagyu in the spring of this year. It smells incredible. Oh, look at that. Rice is done. I'm gonna add the sushi vinegar mix to the rice. That's all the cooking done outside. It's always good to have some water in a bowl when you make sushi, so it stops the rice sticking to your fingers. I've got a sushi roll mat. I've got rice, wagyu steak, and nori seaweed paper. Let's set this out as if I'm in a proper kitchen. I've got to do this properly. I've only made sushi about 3 times before in my life, so I can't guarantee this will go smoothly. A piece of seaweed paper. You put your fingers in the water and suddenly it doesn't stick to your fingers. It's really cool. Like, it tastes like steak, but just unbelievably soft and incredibly easy to chew. It's incredible. I'm gonna take a couple of these pieces of wagyu and lay them across. We're gonna roll. Something like that. It has rolled, so I now have a long roll of sushi. I just need to cut it up. It's best to wet the knife on either side so it cuts through the sushi better. Wow. It's alright, but you see how there's loads of rice for the amount of like the steak on the inside. I'm gonna make another one, but do it like with half the amount of seaweed, so there's half the amount of rice. Hopefully it will end up a bit better. The good thing about having just a standard ply surface is that I can just use it as a chopping board. There should be a better ratio of steak to rice. See, it's a slightly thinner roll. Oh yeah, that looks perfect. That's good. I'm glad I did that, because these ones, these thicker ones, you sort of don't taste the steak because you just get so much rice. You got to get the balance right. These ones, however, you see that it's like mostly the steak with a little bit of rice. Before we dig in to our meal, a few finishing touches. I want to make a little dipping sauce. I've got some light soy sauce. My favorite thing in the world. This is honestly amazing. Sesame oil. Okay, there's cars turning up all around me. It's the middle of the night. I'm just here making my food. I don't want anything else. Blessings on the meal, everyone. We've got a beautiful candle from Griff, the beekeeper. We've got some yummy looking sushi. I'm in the back of my camper. You take a piece of sushi, you dip a little bit in there. You don't need much because it's so strong. That's wonderful. So good. Not only does sushi taste nice, I think it looks really, really good as well. Little nuggets of food that you can just have in one mouthful. Brilliant invention. I'm gonna finish off these, then get a good night's sleep. All gone. Good night. Good morning. It's a good morning. I am about to drive to meet up with a guy called Mick. And he is a maker of many things. And a few years ago, Mick made a kitchen knife for me. And I've been using it a lot in my kitchen. And he invited me up to see his new workshop. Yeah, this is the way to Mick's place, right?
Yeah.
So you are the mechanic.
I am.
What are you working on at the moment?
Oh, I've got a gearbox in this van to do.
Oh wow. Hello.
How's it going, mate?
On the right is Owain, a mechanic, and on the left is Mick, a knife maker, and they work next to each other in a garage in the town of Carmarthen in South Wales.
We partitioned off the back space, the back quarter if you like, so that's my workshop. So yeah, we're kind of, it's really mutually beneficial, isn't it, having the space together? Because
I guess you can borrow tools.
Yeah, absolutely, that happens
and also,
a lot.
If I worked on my own inside somewhere, I'd get really bored and lonely.
Yeah, well this is it, you know,
Yeah.
we always like a little morning catch up, and we'll have a chat in the afternoon.
And you come through, I come through. It's really, it works, and then, you know, if Fozy needs to lift with something, I come out and give him a hand. And
or if I need to, you know, shape some plates or something, I can use your
it works really well. Yeah.
And here is where the knife making happens. Today's aim was to make a knife and a leather sheath. I didn't really believe it would be possible to do this all in one day, but Mick assured me that if we worked efficiently, I would go home in the evening with a brand new handmade knife.
We'll have to not cut corners, we'll take a few shortcuts using some faster setting epoxy, which is the glue that we secure the handles to the steel with. But the steel piece we'll do in its entirety. So we'll take a piece of steel stock, we'll mark it out, we'll cut it on the bandsaw, we'll then profile it on the grinders. Once that's done, we'll heat treat the knife, so it'll go into a kiln, it'll then be quenched in oil, and then we'll do a flame temper on it just to bring it back and give it its strength. We'll then rub the flats so that we've got a nice satin finish on the steel, select and fit a handle, glue it up, and then we'll have basically a finished blade, but we'll have two horrible blocky pieces of wood on the side of the blade, and then we'll profile it on the grinders using different abrasives, hand shape and finish, and then we'll oil it, and then hopefully, if there's enough time left, we'll do a little bit of stitching on the sheath, and you'll walk away with a fully finished knife. So we're going to take a piece of steel stock from my stock over here. Carbon steel, stainless steels, and some kind of unique layered steels. So we're going to use a very simple tool steel today with a small amount of carbon in it. In conjunction with the iron molecules and a few other ingredients inside this steel, the carbon is the molecule that reacts to form what's called martensite once the steel is hardened. If there's no carbon content, the steel won't harden. It's as simple as that. So the more carbon, the harder the steel, but it's a very finite amount to get the balance between hard and brittle.
So this is similar to what we want to create.
This is a finished, what we call a spear point bushcraft knife.
That's so cool.
Yeah, so every knife that I have ever made or designed, I've made a template of, so that if I ever want to remake that knife, I can just sort of pull a template out. So I'll just have a fish through here now, literally. There's the knife that we're after. So that's going to be your sort of field and fish knife, if you like.
Field and fish knife, I like that.
Oh, there we go, yeah, field and fish.
I got a present for you from the beekeeper that I saw yesterday.
Oh, did you go to... Oh, wow.
There you go. It's a block of beeswax. He said you might find it useful for putting on your knives or...
I do.
Oh wow, you already used some.
Yeah, so this is a really strange kind of use for this, but when we prick the leather with these irons, these are Japanese irons, these are handmade, they're very fine toothed, and again, going back to the heat treatment, sometimes they can be a little bit brittle. So when I'm pushing through three or four layers of leather, I sometimes have to wiggle the iron to get it out. So what I do is I press it into beeswax first and then push it through the leather, and it just adds a little bit of slip. So that comes out easily, so I'll absolutely use that. It smells really good as well. Just under the weight of my hand now, I'll just press this down and then I'll just trace out the shape, and what we'll do is it gives us a nice line to cut to with the bandsaw. So we'll use a steel cutting bandsaw, which is slow moving but high torque, because this is 4mm steel. It's actually quite difficult to cut through. You could do this with an angle grinder if you were a sort of beginner knife maker, but an angle grinder will generate quite a lot of heat into the steel, which is what you're trying to avoid at this stage. So this is actually a portable bandsaw which you use on a building site for cutting steel if you were doing sort of industrial welding and sort of structure building. So it's a portable unit. All I've done is mounted it on the bench, and I've put a small table on it. So I've got a high torque blade on here. This is bimetal, so it's really, really hard. It's been tempered to a degree, but it will allow me to cut harder steels accurately and safely. And that's essentially what we're going to do. Easy enough, eh?
Cool.
Yeah.
Look, it's already looking more like a knife.
So we're going to go to the grinder and we're going to profile it. You could call it, linisher is the proper word in the industry, but these are specific knife making grinders. So you've got two different sorts here. You've got, they're named by the size of the belt. So I've got 2x48, so 48 inches long, 2 inches wide, and a 2x72. So slightly longer arm, same width, but 72 inch belt. The advantages of a 72 over a 48 are this is a lot faster and will remove a lot more material quickly. This is a bit more steady, although I can increase the speed, but it will keep cool because the longer belt, more air movement, so on and so forth. So what I'll do first of all is just flip this grinder over. This device here is called a VFD, a variable frequency drive, and what it does is it takes 240 volt power supply into a 3-phase motor, but via this box, so it allows us to control the speed of the motor. So I can stop it and start it as I wish. So with a conventional motor, you'd switch the switch on and it would reach a certain speed and carry on at that speed, and it's not controllable. But with a variable frequency drive, I can control the speed. So utilising the table as our rest and the platen as our main work surface, and this is what's called a contact wheel or a roller wheel. We'll use that to shape the radius at the back end of the knife, and the platen will maintain that nice curve across the top. This is a 60 grit belt, and this is a really nice quality 3M Cubitron, self-sharpening. So as we remove material, it will sharpen itself and it will take that steel off in a matter of seconds. So we've got a nice smooth profile from the middle of the spine right back over the pommel and into the first recess for the back of the hand there. And this is what I was saying earlier on, so just check every single time. Trying to imagine that there's a handle on there as well, but really, how secure is that going to be in my hand when I'm using it? Is it going to slide out? And as I said, we can take the material off, but we can't put it back on, so slowly, slowly every time. Perfect.
So I just learned that the place where your index finger goes in on the knife is called the choil.
We've gone as far as we can with the grinder. What we want to do now is really refine this edge. And you can see the lines disappearing straight away. And you can almost feel any sort of little imperfections, any low spots, and they'll highlight them. So although you may not be able to see them with the eye, I can see there's a low spot there and there's a low spot there. So they're only microns deep, but they make a big difference to a cutting edge.
How did you get into making knives?
So I left the army after 24, 25 years, and I worked for a charity for a year, and then I ended up in a big farm vets as a practice manager. Just wasn't loving the job, and I was going home at night time and started watching a little bit of YouTube, which is where I first discovered you and your brother's channel, and it just helped me decompress a little bit. And then I came across a guy, I think he may have been Polish or Lithuanian, somewhere Eastern Bloc anyway, but there was no audio on the video. It was just him sort of going to his shed and making a knife, and he had some basic tools. So I thought, oh, I've got a lawnmower blade in the shed, I'll have a go at that at the weekend. So I went out there and kind of made a Captain Caveman effort, but then I got interested in the hardening and the tempering of the steel, and it just went from there really. So a number of things happened. My health took a bit of a dip, so I couldn't ride my mountain bikes, so I sold my mountain bikes to fund a grinder, which is this one here, still here now, and then it kind of went from there. But you know, my wife was super supportive all the way along, and you know, humoured me, I think, initially, because I was getting really excited about it all, and I hadn't really made a proper sort of knife, if you like. I made a couple of knives, and a friend of mine got in touch, a very good friend, and said I'd like those for my sons, because there were two matching knives. So he said, how much do you want for them? And I was like, well, I didn't have a clue, because at that point it wasn't a commercial venture. So, you know, we came to an agreement and off they went, and then it just went from there, word of mouth. A couple of people saw other pictures, and I started putting a bit more work on social media and Facebook, and yeah, it took off. And then I left the vets after a particularly rough day. I went downstairs, phoned my wife and said, look, you know, I'm losing my mind here. And she said, right, you know, bugger it, clear your desk, come home, we'll make it work. And that's what we've done. So yeah, here we are 5-6 years later in a workshop, sort of fully fledged, if you like. So we're just going to find the distance between here and here first of all. So that's just under 30, so I'll go 15 and a touch, and I'll make a mark, and I'll do the same that side. So in between those two, I know is where my pin's going to be. And then with the lanyard tube, I kind of swag it, so a bit of a stupid wild ass guess. So it's about there, and I'll obviously adjust that accordingly. And what we'll do now is we'll just punch 2 holes. Just a centre punch, so a steel punch, harder than the material I'm using. So again, it comes back to the heat treatment. So this will have been hardened, like as we said, it'll be heated up to cherry red, quenched in oil so that it's brutally hard, and then it will have been very, very lightly tempered back so that it's harder than any material we wallop. Now 01 tool steel is a hard steel, it's a tough steel. And all it does is just leaves a small indentation for the drill bit to bite into on the drill press. What we'll do is, because we've got 4mm of steel across the spine, the tang if you like, which is what its actual sort of known name is, we'll need to remove a little bit of weight from here. So once we've ground the bevels, a lot of this material will be gone and we'll lose a lot of weight at the front end of the knife. And what we don't want is we don't want it tail heavy, because once you've got the handle material on it, it'll just fatigue your hand. So we'll drill a series of holes through here, and because they're hidden and no one will see them, it doesn't really matter how they look or where they go. But just for ease of use on the drill press, I'll draw a line between the 2 pin lines, and then we'll drill the 6 ones initially, and then with the 8 for the lanyard tube, I'll then drill 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 more holes along the middle, and they're 8mm in diameter. They'll remove a good bit of material, but they also have a second use in that when we epoxy the handle onto the knife, they'll form glue pegs between the 2 pieces of material. So rather than the handle sitting on just a flush piece of steel, it will have more surface area to a different bonding surface, so it makes it twice as strong. So this is a drill press. This is a I think it's 1943 or 1963 Passera. So this was getting thrown away. A farmer was going to throw this away. So he said, if you can come and move it, you can have it. And the key word there is if you can come and move it, because it's solid steel.
It looks pretty heavy.
Yeah, so I went along in the evening with Owen's van on my own while I was nursing a hernia, which was an absolute treat. Took it into 3 pieces and got it in the van. It almost killed me. It's got a sticky switch, you know, it's a little bit rough and ready, but it's absolutely awesome. And we just let the drill bit do the work, and it's all over in a couple of seconds. Slightly bigger area, so it's a little bit slower. There we go. Before I got unwell, I used to ride mountain bikes fanatically. Where you slept last night on the Brethla trails, there's 2 fantastic mountain bike trails which go for like kilometres. So I used to go up there and ride my bike, and every ride I'd go on, there'd be a red kite following me. Okay, that's odd. But then it got really weird. So every single ride, and I'd literally look up, and there it would be. Wow. So I don't know if it was a hen or a cock bird, but it would follow me and for miles and miles and miles.
That's so cool.
Maybe thinking I was prey or I was going to drop some food or something, I don't know, because they're raptors, you see, they don't hunt, they take carrion. So
that's epic.
Yeah, it was, and it just kind of stuck with me. So 2 6mm for our pins, and then these ones are for weight saving and for the glue to pass through, and then our lanyard tube is an 8mm at the back. So we're just going to countersink these quickly now, just to take the burr off, which we've formed on the back there, so it doesn't scag our fingers and gives us a nice smooth surface. All I'm trying to do is get a pre-heat treat surface on this, so that's already reasonably smooth, but there will be small scratches and anomalies in there that I want to remove.
Oh, beautiful, wow.
Okay, so it's just a start point, you know. A little bit of WD-40, it just helps the paper to slide. And what we'll do, the next stage is we're going to sort of do heat treat prep, so we'll coat this knife in an anti-scale compound, 2-fold, keeps the scale down, because once we put it into the kiln and we heat it up, the surface will oxidise and will change, and some of the elements will want to escape. So the anti-scale compound keeps the carbon molecules and the other stuff inside the steel, but also stops the build-up of unnecessary scale on the surface. So when we quench the blade, that will just flake off and leave us with a nice smooth surface. Then we'll have to just come back, quickly dust it off with a 120 grit, and then we can temper it and see those colours run. Heat treatment oven, what we're going to do now is, because 01 tool steel has a couple of other elements in it as well as the carbon and the iron, it requires to be soaked at certain temperatures. So we're going to pop it in here now. I'm going to take it up to 520 degrees and we're going to hold it there accurately within 1 degree for 10 minutes. I'm then going to ramp the temperature up to 815 and we're going to hold it for 12 minutes. At that point, when my alarm goes off, we'll take it out and we'll quench the blade in oil. So we'll go from a annealed state to a martensite state, which is hardened but not tempered, and you'll see that on the steel itself. So if you want to have a quick look in there, so the knife sits in there, and inside here are a number of heating elements. So once I fire up the PID, which is the little controller there, which allows me just to keep the temperature within 1 or 2 degrees. So we've got a few minutes.
Nice. Right. Can we play darts while we wait?
Yeah.
So that knife now is hardened but not tempered.
Correct. Yeah. So if I was to put that in the vise now and pull it over, it would snap immediately, and we'd see inside what's called the grain structure. It'd be like fine caster sugar, extremely fine. But at the moment it's hard, but it's got no strength. So what I'm going to do is rub it back now so we can see the surfaces. Then we'll play the flame over it with a blowtorch, and we'll bring out the temper, which basically just releases the last little bit of carbon back into the knife and gives it its strength, as well as enough hardness to maintain an edge. There we go.
So now the knife is tempered.
Yep. So we've taken away the brittleness, and we can demonstrate that very easily by taking a piece of mild steel in the vise. So as I mentioned before, if we'd done this in a soft state, we'd damage the edge of this and we'd still make a dent. We've got no damage at all on our knife because it's super hard. We've chipped what is the scale, which has been caused by the temper, but we've still got a perfect 90-degree angle there.
And that shows that this is harder than
Absolutely,
that.
Yeah. I mean, I can...
It's almost painful to watch.
No damage whatsoever.
Wow.
Okay, so it's a really crude way of demonstrating it, but you've got complete faith in that now. We've hardened and tempered the knife now, so we're at a stage where we're going to grind the bevels onto the knife. The bevels are this formation here, where we remove the steel at a designated angle, the same on both sides, to form a cutting edge.
So you've got this jig which holds the knife in place, and then this is set to the right angle.
Yep, so I've just changed the angle of the platen so that we've got a pre-designated angle, and what happens is it will go the same this side. I'll then turn the knife around, grind the opposite side, so eventually we meet in a triangle, if you like, an equilateral bevel to a cutting edge.
Good, I think.
Oh, mate, that's awesome. That's really good. You've got a good eye. A good eye.
Look at that.
So this is called a satin finish. So we finish with just one-way pulls. So you don't get what's called J-hooks, because when you stop at the end of the knife you can leave little marks, so you just go one way, pull it all the way to the finish on both sides. So we are going to fit the handle and everything ready in a second.
We're good at throwing. So this is going to become our handle.
Yep.
And these are the pins which help hold it in place, like help reinforce it?
Yeah, absolutely. So more of a guide really, to guide the handle onto the knife equally so that we've got it nice and symmetrical at the front. But yeah, of course, they go through all three parts, the steel, the wood, and then back into the wood. So yeah, they help secure things. So first of all, we'll clamp the knife to the block and we'll drill the holes, because we've used the actual knife template as a guide for our holes. So we'll go back to the drill, 1, 2 and 3. So all I've done to secure those is a bit of super glue. Just keeps them together and is a breakable bond. If you strike it, it's too, like I said about the brittleness, it'll just crack apart. So because everything's so flat, we only need a tiny little smear on each thing. You don't need to lather it on there, otherwise it's just going to squeeze out and it's a waste, you know. And I can use the excess from the surface of the scale just to push into that hole. That's that one ready. So I'll get a little bit on the pin as well. Okay, they're ready to go.
So whilst that's drying, you're doing the sheath, the leather sheath.
It's veg tan leather, 4mm. So I've used a template which I've developed again over the years, which is big enough for a knife. Cut it out on the opposite side because you're left-handed. So I've cut some grooves in the side here. I've also beveled and burnished these edges here, which basically means taking the edges off with a special tool, and then I've rubbed the leather with a burnishing tool just to give it a nice slick edge. And what it does is it stands the fibres down and stops water and other things ingressing into there, just gives it a nice smooth finish. And then I've folded the belt loop over and I've put a brass D-ring on there so you can hang the knife on a dangler. So if you're in a vehicle, on a bike or whatever, it's not going to sort of stab you in the leg, and you can still utilise this part for the belt loop if you want to. So I just need to punch through here now quickly to form the holes, and then I'll stitch up this bit with some thread. Oh, that's good stuff. Love it.
It smells amazing.
Yeah.
I love it.
So a saddle stitch is a simple back and forth, and you loop the thread over the needle as you go, forming a small sort of like, well, it's like a normal granny knot if you like. Pull it tight, and because the thread is waxed, it grips to itself. So there's no way that unless you unpick that, and it's never actually coming undone. Just want to make sure that we kind of button it up as tight as we can.
Oh wow.
Yeah, so it just takes that nasty, well, it's not nasty, it's just the edge that's left once we've profiled the spine, you know. And if you're careful, you can get it all off in one piece. There you go, that's why my finger should have been in the way. There we go. That's like... and up to there. And then we stop.
Oh, that feels nice.
Yeah?
Yeah, it's so comfortable. Wow, that's incredibly smooth.
Yeah, that is a really gorgeous piece of walnut, I've got to say. On the home stretch now.
I can't believe what I've just witnessed today. I came into Mick's workshop and I didn't really believe that he could create a knife and a sheath all in one day, but he has done it. And how incredible does this look? Wow, thanks Mick. Really interesting day learning about knife making. It's just so beautiful. It looks good, it feels nice. I will put a link to all of Mick's social media platforms and website in the description. So if you want a knife or anything to do with knives, you can go and check that out. Thanks, Mick.
Enjoy.